Gene Hackman's demise was already heartbreaking, however. The autopsy findings revealed something far greater. Traumatic Gene Hackman's final moments will convey tears in your eyes. And go away, you questioning the whole thing turned into it just infection that took him, or did the haunted house or something even extra sinister play a part in his fate? As annoying post-mortem info come to mild the mystery. Best deepens. From the moment Gene Hackman set foot in Santa Fe, something about the area gripped him. An unshakable pull, a quiet whisper under the desert wind. It commenced together with his movie projects in the area, however. Quickly, the appeal grew into something deeper, something nearly eerie. He and his wife Betsy Arakawa felt pressured to stay drawn to a residence that regarded to name them at the start. Glance, it changed into nothing greater than an growing older shape in need of restore. But below its worn outdoors, there was a simple presence, an air of something looking, waiting. Hackman did not shrink back. He embraced the mystery, enlisting the neighborhood company's Studio Architectura to help him reshape the home. But because the walls had been stripped and new foundations laid, it had become clean. This was no regular upkeep. It had a kind of magic in it, Hackman himself said. Approximately, the house he bought the assets due to the fact he appreciated the place, after which, asked Santa Fe architects Harry Olden, Stephen Samuelson from Studio Architectura, to assist turn the residence into the home he had imagined the residence became, nothing greater than a decaying shell. A forgotten 1950s block building, deserted to the factors, its partitions cracked, its spirit hollow. Architect Stephen Samuelson did not mince words. It changed into terrible. He admitted, however, the land, it was ideal. The inspiration sat exactly where it had to, as though it belonged there. Hackman and his wife, Betsy Arakawa, were not searching out an average Pueblo-fashioned domestic. They desired something one of a kind, something giant, open, filled with mild. However, as they started out to convert the residence, it became clear that this was no ordinary preservation step. One was drastic. Nearly 90% of the roof was ripped away, as though peeling lower back layers of a forgotten past. With the ceiling lifted to towering heights, some reaching 20 feet, the gap breathed once more, however, that become most effective. The start walls came crashing down, their secrets spilling into the dirt in which there had once been small confining rooms. A grand corridor emerged, anchored by means of massive tree trunk columns. The air itself seemed to shift, developing hotter, more alive, Hackman estimated, a place wherein area flowed freely, where rooms related in a manner that felt both expansive and intimate. I wanted a first-rate hall, feeling, he stated now, not a maze of closed-off rooms, So the house took shape, a blend of patterns that refused to comply with any single subculture component, Pueblo element, colonial New Mexico, part Spanish Baroque. It turned into no longer specific, no longer polished by the point. The transformation changed into entire. The house not felt deserted. It pulsed with electricity, with track from Hackman's modern-day stereo machine echoing through the high ceilings. The heavy wooden doors creaked inside the wind. And at nighttime, shadows moved, otherwise across the partitions, as if the residence itself have been awoke. Cozy yet large, primitive yet subtle, Hackman had owned other homes earlier then, however. This one changed into, in contrast to any of them. His Monteo house had been formal managed, but this vicinity, this place, had a presence. Gene Hackman approached the layout of his home like a filmmaker, singing an illusion. He didn't need the indoors to look freshly constructed. He wanted it to experience as though it had aged, evidently over decades, collecting layers of history and person. The house is new, he explained, however. We attempted to make it look 100 years vintage or greater. He insisted on diffused imperfections, water stains at the plaster, as though from antique leaks, darkened patches that mimicked years of smoke publicity. The plasterers had been skeptical in the beginning, struggling to understand why all people would need to make a brand new house look worn and aged. But Hackman became continual, and the end result was lovely. The walls gradually shifted in coloration, developing depth and shaping areas without disrupting the open drift of the residents inside the entrance hall. As an example, teal diminished into tan, forming a continuing transition among the outdoors and interior. The same philosophy carried out to the ceiling beams. Cutting-edge wood wasn't sufficient. It had to appear like it had seen time. Each beam become reshaped, burned, beaten with chains, repainted, after which stripped, returned again and again until it carried the patina of age. Hackman also desired stamped tin ceilings in certain rooms. However, not one of the available styles felt proper as an alternative. He delivered in a local artisan to create a custom layout that matched his imaginative and prescient exactly. Hackman wasn't simply overseeing the manor, he became deeply concerned in each issue. He laid out the ground plan for the architects, handpicked the kitchen info, or even joined in at the demolition paintings. As a professional painter, he often combined colorations himself, showing the people the correct shades he wanted. Every corner of the house bore his personal touch, reworking it into something greater than a domestic, something almost cinematic. An area where time itself seemed to blur whilst it came to furnishing their domestic. Hackman and his spouse failed to need the everyday Santa Fe fashion. Rather, they selected a combination of portions from exceptional locations. "We bought a few things in Santa Fe," Hackman said. "However, we additionally observed antiques at auctions in New York, a store in Germany, and Los Angeles. It is a nice combo of soft Southwestern furnishings and bold, tough-edged antiques to bring the whole thing together." They enlisted Santa Fe designers Ken Figueroa and Glenn Gomez, whom they fondly known as our interior collaborators. The result? Become a perfect stability. Santa Fe's earthy colorations and curved paperwork blended seamlessly with the rich traditionalism of European antiques. Large, vibrant add-ons tied it all together, creating an area that felt curated but effortless. The house changed into by no means meant to be a showcase of latest Mexican arts and crafts. Instead, it had become a mirrored image of Hackman's eclectic taste. Some of the maximum hanging portions got here from Morocco, which includes spice shelves so intricately painted that they gave the look of mosaics. This home became not supposed for endless interesting or hosting big gatherings. It was a retreat, a place where Hackman may want to escape for a few months every year whilst he wasn't on set. Right here, life bogged down on a few days. If the mood struck, he might load his pickup truck with oil paints and a canvas, riding into the mountains to paint. Other times he would surely sink into a chair within the living room, analyzing or being attentive to tune at the same time as the wilderness out of doors shifted in color and the clouds drifted over the mountains. Hackman had no manner of understanding that the house he poured his coronary heart into would one day turn out to be the site of his personal mysterious loss of life, leaving many to wonder. Became the house always haunted. On February 26, 2025, an upkeep employee arrived at their secluded domestic, unaware that he'd become about to discover a scene of profound tragedy. An unsettling mystery. The worker knocked, but there has been no answer. At first, he conceived the couple is probably away. However, something felt wrong. He walked round, checking the doors and windows. This is when he observed. The front door became barely open, hesitant but worried. He stepped in. The residents felt deserted as he moved. Similarly, he referred to as out their names, but there has been no reaction. Then he noticed something that made his blood run cold. Through a doorway, he noticed a frame lying motionless at the ground. It became Gene Hackman, his cane, and Gosses had been nearby as if he had fallen suddenly. The employee immediately subsidized away, his arms trembling as he reached for his phone. To name 911 police, and emergency responders arrived fast. The instant they stepped inside, they knew something became extraordinarily incorrect. Inside the bathroom, near a countertop, lay Betsy Arakawa, a space heater tipped over beside her. There have been pills scattered close by, as though she had been reaching for them in distress. The scene raised on the spot questions. Had she collapsed because of an accident or changed into something else at play? Moving through the home, officers found something even extra unsettling. A German shepherd was determined lifeless, curled up inside a toilet closet. The air inside the residence turned into stale as if time had stood still. For days, 2 different dogs were nevertheless alive. However, susceptible and nervous, their eyes darting around nervously in a separate vicinity of the house. Specifically, the mudroom. Government determined the frame of Jean. On February 11th, sometime after that, she probably collapsed by myself and not able to name for help at the same time as Hackman probably died around Feb 18 while the last activity was detected on his pacemaker. For a whole week after her loss of life, Hackman remained in that residence unaware that his spouse became mendacity, lifeless. Nearby by the point authorities determined he became long gone too, but Hackman did now not die from HAP virus. The virus does not unfold among humans, and his autopsy showed he had not been infected. As an alternative, his weak heart ultimately gave out. Gerald stated he had enormous heart disease, and I assume in the end, that's what led to his loss of life. Virus infections are extraordinarily uncommon. New Mexico reported simplest 7 cases in 2024. However, they may be lethal. 136 confirmed infections in New Mexico over the past 50 years. 42% were deadly. Government warned that human beings often do not understand their houses are at hazard. GFIPs defined averting touch with rodent urine or feces, particularly in enclosed, poorly ventilated areas, is key to preventing contamination. G. Hackman and Betsy Arakawa spent over 3 decades together, deeply committed to each other, but ultimately fate tore them aside within the maximum tragic way. Betsy probably died unexpectedly, and by myself. Jean, misplaced within the fog of Alzheimer's, spent his final days in a domestic full of silence, probably looking forward to a wife who became already long gone. It's a tale that leaves at the back of extra sorrow than solutions. How do you experience approximately this devastating post-mortem report? Let us know your thoughts within the remarks men's section. Thank you for looking.